Welcome to my shop again. It's been quite a while since I've put up a video on my YouTube channel. Ran across this, thought it might be a great opportunity to add to my vast collection of videos that I've put up. This is a 1999 Dodge Ram pickup, 5.2 liter V8. I got it from a guy at work, got a screaming deal on it. It has a cylinder that it has no compression. Turns out it's got a bad valve, exhaust valve seat more than likely. So the cylinder heads on this engine need to come off. It's the same amount of work that we would do to just do a head gasket replacement. So we will put new head gaskets on this, send the heads to the machine shop, and have them gone through. So, real quickly, I thought I would do this, first of all, for those people that might not be sure they want to take the plunge into something this deep. Won't be able to shoot every single little step. It's going to be a very general approach. You'll need a good little manual to do little things that you need to take apart. You're not sure how to get apart. These little Haynes manuals, they're like 20 bucks at most parts stores you can get locally. Little camera to shoot things as you go, because you may not remember exactly where things came off. So digital photos are very helpful. You can use your phone too to take pictures, but I don't like to simply because my hands get so dirty. We will use marking tape as we go as well. Take notes, make a shopping list, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, let's get rolling on this. First thing we're going to do is disconnect the negative battery terminal, drain the cooling system. I'm not going to show you how to do that. So I'll meet you back here on camera when that's done, and we'll decide where to go from there, right? Cool, let's get rolling. So what I've done here is I've set the camera up on the passenger side of the engine. It's kind of tough to get a good shot at this point because of all the components that are still there. But I wanted to kind of explain the scope of the job real quick and how deep we need to go. I've put a little tape on a screwdriver here, but see where these spark plugs are down here? I've got them marked with some orange tape. There's some in the back, and there's two back there, and there's two up here. The spark plugs screw into the side of the cylinder head. And the cylinder head is where we need to get to. So the cylinder head is down this low, down here, hard down this way. The exhaust manifold is here, and it bolts to the side of the cylinder head as well. So the cylinder head intakes air from the top of the engine that's managed up here. It intakes air, and it also it valves the air into the cylinders down there in the bottom end. And then the exhaust manifold here, it ports the exhaust out. So we need to get down this deep, down here. So we're going to have to take all this stuff up here, and we call that, in my day, we called that clearing the field. So I know it looks daunting, but as we go, we're just very organized. We'll mark everything, and remember, as we take things apart, there will be fewer and fewer things to take apart as we get near our goal down here. So that's the scope of the job. It's that deep. We have to go way down there on both sides. So as you can see here, I've cleared a lot of the field here simply by taking the radiator out, the big fan shroud that was here, the fan that was inside. I did have to refer to the manual on the fan clutch here because it was a little bit of a different takeoff procedure. But what you can see more importantly is that this has given me a whole lot of room here to get to the front of the engine. Most of this is going to have to come off. I can get to the sides much easier, the top. It'll be quite a bit easier for me to get in here to mark things, take things apart. We're going to be meticulous from this point on by marking things as we go. If you take, for example, something apart and you don't even know what it's called, you can simply mark this with, for example, A with a piece of masking tape, and mark this with a piece of masking tape A if it's an electrical connector or something like that. So when you go back together, you know A goes to A, or some similar kind of a process. So anyway, let's get started on this guy and get it torn apart. Okay, I wanted to crawl up in here and get a closer look for you guys on this intake manifold / plenum assembly. This really is what makes the job like this looks very daunting because of all the stuff. Once you get all the wiring and vacuum hoses up and out of the way, the goal is to leave this thing as together as you can. For example, this right here is the fuel rail on this side of the engine that feeds the cylinders. You want to leave that on. There's really no reason to take that off. And this over here is the fuel rail for the driver's side. I've got it plugged off here. This is the connection point where the fuel delivery came in. So there's really no reason to take, for example, the spring off, the injectors out. I'm even leaving the thermostat in here. So I did have a problem with this bolt here, though. It would not come off, even with an impact gun, so I had to drill it out. I had went ahead and gone ahead and pulled this intake manifold up, but I kind of put it back in place because I want to show you guys a couple more things before we continue with the video. These are the bolts here that bolt the thing down. Now, there's more on this side. I've got them pulled up already. You can see them in here.
Now, they can be different lengths, so you want to keep them in order when you pull them apart. Just leave them in the holes. In this case, they're all the same length, but they can be in different lengths. So keep them in order. And next, when you take these out, take them off in a reverse sequence. When we put this back on, they have to be torqued in a certain sequence. Typically, when you torque them down, you're going to start in the middle and work your way out in a cross pattern like this. Okay? The reverse would be true whenever you take the thing apart. You want to go here and then 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 here, like that. Quarter turn at a time. Use your manual and follow the torque pattern. So real quickly here, we're going to pull these bolts out. We're going to pull this thing up. I want to give you guys a view of what it looks like when this thing's going to come up. I'm trying my best. You know, if I end up using this little camera I've got on my head, I'm trying my best not to make you guys sick. I'm standing up halfway upside down. Okay, so I've already unbolted the thing. You can use a pry bar in certain areas. Be careful where you use a pry bar. But in this case, I could come right under here, and I've already kind of broken it loose, but you can take a rubber mallet and try to get it up, and it should come loose something like that, okay? Once you get everything out of the way, that's what it looks like underneath there. There's a distributor in the gear. Okay? All right. Let's continue this. All right. You can see that we've made a lot of progress here. We've taken all the top stuff apart, and it really wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. Each little section I just took on as a little mini job, mark everything as I went. We've gotten this far down. Now I can show you what actually the cylinder heads look like, or where they are. So if you look down here, I'm going to use my little pointer here. This is this lower seam between, this is the seam between the cylinder head and the lower block. So from here out is the actual cylinder head. Now we have another one on the other side over here too. So there are two because it's a V8 engine. But on this side, for illustration purposes, we have an exhaust manifold still bolted up here, right here. And this is where the exhaust is ported out of each cylinder. It's attached down there to the exhaust pipe. And up here, it's attached to each cylinder head where the ports are. I sprayed each fastener area with WD-40 last night, including down there by the pipe, to allow it a night to soak in. Shouldn't be too terribly hard to get off. They're notorious for breaking, so highly suggest you do that. Really important that you do this. These are the rocker arms, and there are 2 per cylinder on this engine. They have to go back in the same place, as well as their attachments on the inside, the nuts, the adjuster nuts. So do the push rods. Now the push rods are easy to get upside down. They need to go back in the same orientation that they came out of. How I'm going to keep that organized is I'm going to use sandwich bags for these rocker arms and their fasteners. And for the push rods, I will probably just use a box and punch them down inside the box and take a Sharpie and mark, cylinder 1, 2, 3, etc. Let's continue this and see how much further we can get. The next step, we're going to get these exhaust manifolds off, and then it's time to pull the heads off. It'll be exciting to see what it looks like underneath. I've got it set to where we're ready to suck in some air and fuel on number 1 over here. Number 1 consists of these 2 valves right here, and this would be the exhaust coming out, and this would be the intake coming in over here because of the spark plug right here. So we're going to begin the stroke. I'm going to rotate the engine clockwise with a
a big ratchet here. Get on here, and if I can get down in here, you can see, hard to tell, but my mark is on 0 here. Let's watch number 1 here. This would be the intake, and this would be the exhaust, right? So I'm going to rotate the engine. It's actually going down. So that means it's sucking in air, okay, and gas. All right, roughly when it starts to come back, it's going to come back up. It's going to close off. Okay, right about there where it closes, both of these valves are up, and the cylinder is a sealed unit, and the piston is all the way down. It's going to come up, leaving these closed and compressing that air-fuel mixture. Right? So as that's happening, what we can do is we can rotate this crankshaft till we see top dead 0 mark right there. And that is where the piston is all the way to the top of the engine, or of the block, and you can see these valves are still all the way up. Just before this position would be where the spark plug would ignite. So that's top dead center on the compression stroke. Yes, this truck is tall enough for me to actually stand here. It's a big 4-wheel drive, and of course, nice. Had lots of room here to work once we've cleared the field. We were finally ready to unbolt the cylinder head, both the cylinder heads. Essentially, you unbolt these a quarter turn at a time, generally speaking, and you go in the reverse order of the torque sequence. So you just look that stuff up in your book. And again, I did, and it's from the outside in, alternating. So here we go. Let's give it a shot here. Oh, by the way, some of these bolts will have different lengths. It's a good idea to keep track of them. In my case, I'm going to replace all the bolts anyway with brand new bolts. So I don't need to take notice of where they're coming from. Also, we may get some coolant when this thing comes up. I've got my drain pan underneath. So let's see what we can do here. We're going to start here, quarter turn at a time. There we go. That's about a quarter, and mine is supposed to be in pairs like this. Yeah. Now that they're loose, the order doesn't really matter so much. We just want to make sure they're all loose. All right, we're ready to pull this up. Now, generally speaking, they say not to pry. Certainly, you don't want to beat between the seam between the block and the cylinder head. You don't want to pry in there or beat in there with a hammer or a screwdriver. But like right in here, there's a nice little place where we can pry up. Just give it a little nudge. There it comes. You can see it moving. These things are heavy, so just be aware. There it goes. There is the head gasket right there. Right here is the head gasket. So you can see that there's the lower block and there's a cylinder head. Okay? Watch your back. Lots of coolant going down there. Okay, if you run across something like this where you have a lot of coolant that gets inside the cylinders like this, get it cleaned out as best you can. But what you'll want to do is, once it dries a fair amount, you want to take some engine oil and coat the inside of the cylinders, and that'll keep the cylinders from rusting. Blow that out, some oil on it, and we'll be good. So I get the heads back from the machine shop, and one of them was so cracked that it's not usable, and the other one had another crack that was starting to get pretty bad. In my case, the crack was in between the two valves. This is the bottom of the cylinder head. that faces the engine. And the crack was in between here. You can see that there's not a lot of metal in between the valves. Very common that they crack there. So rather than spend money on some used heads that came off of there that were cracked, I decided to order these online. And you can see here, they've been gone through. Everything's pretty much refurbed on here. I've transferred the parts from the old head to the new head, and I've cleaned them all up real well. We now turn our attention to a really important part of a job like this, and that's cleaning. I'll start off by tapping the threads in the top of the engine where the head bolts go. I'll chase this down in there with a little bit of oil, compressed air, degreaser, to get those threads down in there nice and clean. And the purpose of that is so that when we go back in with the head bolts, we can get a more accurate torque, which is tightness. The next step that I will do is buff off the top of the engine block, and those surfaces are called the deck. I use an air buffer like this. We want to be careful not to take off much more than just the leftover gasket material. That deck surface is an exact flatness. So buff lightly and only take off the leftover gasket. And the last little step that I will do is clean the piston tops. We don't want to rotate that crankshaft until we get the cylinders cleaned out and put a fresh coat of oil. As we buffed the top of the engine off, we're going to kind of get stuff everywhere. Do the best you can to stay clean. Before you rotate that crankshaft, you want to get in there and clean all that out. Use a little bit of compressed air, and then once it's clean, oil it up, and then you can rotate it until other piston heads come up and clean those tops off as well. Well, one thing's for sure is as I get older, this gets harder because these things are heavy. Watch your back when you're doing this. You can see that we've set these replacement heads on the block. The new head gaskets are on. I have not torqued the heads down though. We'll do that this evening. One thing has come up though. My main truck that I drive to work every day developed a pretty deep problem this morning when I went out to start it. So we're going to speed this up. I'm going to have to get this truck repaired and out of here. As we speak, it's a week and a half before Christmas. Cold outside, and I'm not going to do a deep repair out in the dark and in the cold. So we're going to roll more on this. I'm just going to set some cameras up and shoot cover video. Not going to do a whole lot of more on-camera kind of stuff like this, I don't think. Might do a little bit, but my apologies. We'll see how quickly we can get through this. I need to get this truck repaired and out of here, okay? So, all right, let's continue. I'm excited to see how this is going to turn out. I'm interested in the torque sequence. Here we are right here. So this is one of the cylinder heads, and we have in this sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's from the inside out in pairs. Cool. So it's all back together, a lot of work and a lot of cleaning. Anytime we're going to fire something like this up for the first time after having had this apart so deeply, we have to be concerned about safety. Anywhere that there's fuel present and electricity, we have to be concerned with fire. Now, when we've taken this engine apart like we did, in this case, we've probably disturbed connections and seals that have been in place for years. So there's a high likelihood that there may be a leak or two when you pressurize everything and try to start everything up. So be prepared for that, or take necessary precautions, whatever you think. I typically have a blanket, water hose ready. Good idea to maybe try to start it outside if you can. Okay. The other thing is when you start this up, remember when we had it apart, we put a lot of oil inside the cylinders to keep it lubricated and to help keep it clean. When you first fire this up, it's going to create a lot of smoke. So have your garage open, of course, when you're going to run this. And look for leaks. Clamps will loosen up over time. Brand new clamps, you will get a little bit of looseness after maybe the first few weeks. Carry some coolant water mix with you. Expect to have to tighten a few things as you go. But it looks really nice. Things came out really clean. For the most part, you can see that I put on brand new spark plug wires. The belt was fine. You can see some new gaskets in there. Now, in my case, or in this case, truth be told, I've already started this. It was late, I was tired, and wanted to see if it was going to run. So it runs good. I'll do a startup for you so you can see it. Again, when you put brand new or rebuilt heads on, do not that when you first start it, do not throttle it up real high or anything like that. Let that oil pressure build up before you are able to throttle it at all. Those lifters in there, the valve train, a lot of that has collapsed over time since you've had it apart. Okay? Cool. So this has been a job well done. Very long video. I apologize for the length, but hopefully the detail in this or some of it will help some of you decide whether or not you want to take the plunge into something this deep.